We've just replaced John's ENV half shafts on the car because of scoring on the taper. And that then put me in mind of the half shaft threads. Now on almost every car, no, in fact I'm sure it must be every car we've ever seen, the half shaft thread has been to a greater or lesser extent fouled, and therefore the nut just doesn't want to go on it properly. So let's go and see how you recut both the shaft thread and the nut thread. Let's go to the workshop bench. Okay, so here's an old half shaft. It's actually a scrap one, the scrap one off John's car as it happens. And if we offer up an ENV nut to it, and this is exactly the same on the Spicer as well. Okay, this one's actually not bad. You can get a thread on it, which is not always the case. Trying to find a thread can be really difficult when they have been fouled. But then it locks off like that. Okay, so the tools we need for is a tap for the wheel nut and a die for the half shaft. Now, wheel nuts, trivial and straightforward. Let's just get this out of the way. And the tap size on the ENV is an M20 by 1.5. On the Spicer half shaft, it is 7/8 UNF. 7/8 UNF on the Spicer, M20 by 1.5 on the ENV. And the way I like to do this is I'll put it in the vise. Now I like to put it the tap horizontal because I find I can feel for a true mate better than if I put it vertical. Now, as I say, in this case, it's actually pretty simple. The thread's actually halfway good to start with. But if it's difficult, then what I suggest you do is you pop the nut into your socket, offer up the socket, and then gently wind on using your eyeball to check that your socket is looking true on the thread. And there we go, there it goes. And then we wind on. You can feel this one's got a bit of resistance, which makes sense. And this is a number 2 tap, by the way, a number 2 tap. There we go. And then just wind it off. Okay, so now we've cleaned up the nut. We know that that's got a clean thread on it. That's very simple, and it's the same task whether it's Spicer or ENV. You just run the tap through it. Now, with new half shaft nuts, do not assume that their thread has been cut properly. It almost never has. I think it's the modern production process. If you could find original 1960s half shaft nuts, I bet you they would be perfect, but the modern ones are pretty poorly cut threads. So my advice is that you buy the die at the same time as you buy new half shaft nuts. Let's just offer that new one up like so, and it goes on a couple of turns there. Actually, that's not a bad one. It's seized up there, so let's just run that through now. That's quite good. That's better than I expected, I must say. There we go. Nicely cut threads. I say we would always even with a brand new nut, we would always cut the threads with an accurate tap. Now for the half shaft, and this is tricky. It's tricky when you've got the right tool, and it's nigh on impossible when you've got the wrong tool. So again, I quite like these horizontal, so we're going to put this in to our vise horizontally. There we go. The reason recutting the half shaft thread is complicated is because of the woodruff key. With a 5 cutting die, that is to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cutting surfaces, the cutting surface fouls on the woodruff key channel, and it's extremely difficult not to drop one of the cutters into the channel, then foul it, then cross threads, and you've wrecked your half shaft. However, there is an answer, and that is the 6 cutting die. So here we have it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 means that I think you've always got 5 supporting cutters, and the 6th one might have dropped in here. But if you get it right, you've probably got all 6 cutters to start the thread. So that's the absolute trick, a 6 cutting die. What we're going to do first is wind in the expansion screw there, and then just gently nip up the locating screws. So on we go. I'm going to use the eyeball above and my palm of the hand to keep it square on the half shaft. Then wind it off, leaving a couple of threads on there. There we go. And then undo the expansion screw there, and just nip up the 2 grub screws and run it through again. And there we have it, a clean thread. Now you can do this task in situ, so let's just go and have a look on John's card just to show you how I did it. Okay, so just pop off the half shaft nut and the washer. You can nip on the brakes, and then you have a reasonable clearance on the wheel studs to get several threads cut. Like so. Now granted, that was easy because I did it 40 minutes ago. But look at this, you can get, what's that, 10 turns before you start there to strike the wheel studs. Okay, so then you can take it back, just slacken off the expansion a little bit. it's the outer threads that are foul on the half shaft. So you don't normally need to go in all the way here, but if you do need to go in all the way, then now is the time to pop the drum off, because you've started the thread with everything stable. It's very difficult to hold the half shaft stable when the drum isn't on there. So now you can take the drum off and then finish the rest of the threads. So there we go. The fundamental trick is the 6-point cutter, not a 5. Now, whilst we're on the topic, what about the wheel studs? You can do the same trick with the wheel studs and nuts. Obviously, it's exactly the same trick with the tap, and you can run through the wheel nut, but then look at this little trick thing. So this is a cutting die, but it's a hex outer. So obviously, if you try to use a normal die like this on the wheel stud, you'll foul the half shaft. By using this hex one, you can pop that on and then use your 1-inch socket to wind that on, clean up the thread and wind it off again. There you go, 1/2-inch UNF hexagonal die. Well, there we go. You've got to be so careful doing this on the half shaft. It's going to be so easy to cross thread it, but if you take time, care, got everything as clean as you can beforehand, and you've got your 6-point cutter and the expansion screw in, then you should come up with a good product. Yeah, it's really just reiterating that 6-point cutter is the trick tool. And that's it. So that's how you clean up your half shaft, whether it be ENV or Spicer. It's the same technique. And the wheel stud threads as well. Excellent. Thank you very much.